All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could all join us today. We are getting ready. My Chicago women's free speech ladies are still. Oops, I can hear myself talking. Chicago women's free speech ladies. All right, so there I'm back. So our Chicago Free Speech ladies are just getting their cameras ready. So I am welcoming everyone. Welcome to this free speech event for women. We are excited in the US to be hosting these with much regularity. I just want to say to everyone watching, this is something that anyone can put on. These are rallies, these aren't protests. So we've had a lot of success with these. These tend to be a lot safer than having a protest. These are, of course, inspired by our UK sisters who have been doing their speakers' corners and free speech events for over a year now. But just so you know, all you need is, 4 or 5 ladies to get together in an area of your choice, gather them up. Everyone can say what they want to say. If you need someone to live stream these events for you, talk to me, talk to Women's Liberation Radio News, and we will help you host your own events. Jay Thomas is also a good person for that. Welcome everyone who is in the chat. Welcome Alex, welcome Yolanda. Thanks for being here, Shannon and Anna. Welcome to those of you who have not dropped comments. I am also going to say, I'm not sure where everyone is watching, but if you are watching on the Known Heretic YouTube, or if you are watching on the Women's Liberation YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe. Hello, Alwilda and Hante. Welcome to you both as well. And what I'm going to do right now, as we are getting started, I am going to pass it to one of our free speech events veterans and also one of the co-founders of the Women's Liberation Radio News, coming to you from Madison, Wisconsin. We're going to start with a song by Thistle Patterson. Hey, Thistle, welcome.
Hey, Amy. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. I'm gonna let you speak, and I'm gonna let you do your song.
Awesome. Well, it's really great to be here and to be on live on WLRN and also at Known Heretic, and to have a reporter, Jen Thomas, on the ground in Chicago. I can see that they're setting up, and I just wanted to give a shout out to the ladies that are on the ground in Chicago. Salute, salute, my ex salute. To the ladies that are out on the streets of Chicago in July 2022. They are really brave, and I think that this July season, we all have some male violence on our minds. And I just wanted to put a little plug in for WLRN Media. We are a radio station, your community radio station in the Femisphere, but really we're expanding out like every media service to do live stream events like this. We also have a blog with articles, and Aurora Linnea, WLRN staff writer, just put out an article called Brothers in Arms, and it's all about what these shooters have in common, and it's that they're male. And women know this, of course. And so anyway, I highly recommend that you check out WLRN Media's work, including our monthly podcast. And I'm going to put in the comments later on the donate button for you to become a listener sponsor to WLRN if you want us to continue live streaming, because it's about $50 a month. And yeah, we need a little help to stay in the Femisphere. So this is my song that I'm debuting this July, and it's called, I'm not sure yet, but I hope you enjoy it. Ooh, I wanted to show you my alcove in the background, my free speech for women with the suffragist colors, purple, white, and gold. And then also the Angela Wild banner that is referencing 1984, the novel by George Orwell. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength, and trans women are women. So that's a Wild Women Workshop, Angela Wild banner back there. And then, of course, I've got the WLRN poster right there that's been up there for 6 years. So here we go. This is my new song. Got a pocket full of Turf Collective stickers, and I'm riding my bike through the city. I look up and see power lines and cars, but also the flowers so pretty. Yesterday it was 90, today it's 45. The fronts keep rolling in, and from the seat of my bicycle sisters, I tell you, it's starting to look rather grim, but I will ride on to see what I see. I will ride on to be free, 'cause the simple act of motion puts my mind at ease. I was cited with a hate crime for putting up stickers like these. But don't worry, sisters, I know how to move like the breeze. You just keep pedaling forward and you don't bother to look behind. Pretty soon, friends, there'll be stickers of every kind. Yeah, I will ride on to see what I see. I will ride on to be free, 'cause the simple act of motion, it'll put your mind at ease. Oh, but I don't mean to say it gets easier as you go along. No matter how you play, something easily could go very terribly wrong. And it does. Just 'cause. But I still want to be free, to fly high with the breeze. My mind has got to be free, soar high, high with the breeze. So now I've got a pocket full of Turf Collective stickers, and I'm riding my bike through the city. I look up and see ridiculous TRAs, but also the women so sturdy. Yesterday it was freezing, today it's boiling hot. We all know how this could end. And if we band together and have each other's backs, sisters, I know we're gonna win. Yeah, I will ride on to see what I see. I will ride on to be free, 'cause the simple act of motion, when it's paired with symmetry, after a while, yeah, a simple act of motion paired with symmetry. After a while, girls, we're gonna set ourselves free. Yeah, put our mind at ease.
Yay, thanks, Thistle. And it looks like we have Jennifer Thomas here. Oh, did I lose you, Jen?
Hold on, Amy, I'm looking for you.
Oh, and I just okay. So they were in the stream. They're out of the stream. Oh, Thistle, thank you so much for that song. I love it. I love that it covers everything that happens at one of these events and talking about how the trolls come after us and.
Yeah, and that we could carry on because courage calls to courage, and it's fun to ride your bike, and the stickers and the free speech that we're expressing is not harmful. It's not harmful to promote women's sex-based rights like the TERP Collective does, for example.
Yeah.
That's our women's free speech.
Yay, and look, we have Excellensic with us here. Welcome.
Oh, awesome. Hey, Excellensic.
So good to see you. Hopefully we'll get you out at one of these free speech events soon. Oh, thank you all for being here. So I see that Jay Thomas is having a connectivity issue. I know that you said you have 2 songs. You want to go ahead and do your second song while we're waiting for them to connect?
Sure.
Okay, fantastic.
All right, so you can catch this on the WLRN SoundCloud page. It's called Trans, and I wrote it like back in 2014, around the time that I interviewed Sheila Jeffries on WORT 89.9 FM in Madison, and I was just trying to sort through it all in my mind. I kind of was noting the trend of what it was and where it came from, and trans is a liberal construct invented by white straight men that shuts down our discussions of their violent power, and then they win. Violent power begins with man over woman, and then it all spins off from there into this postmodern racist sexist nightmare. What would be the opposite if trans was real? Cis, cis, cis. Only those seduced by power expect the whole world to be a personal deal. Who make it their standard, only personal worth, their proof to be the center of everything. While the earth chokes and dies of their spoon. Their spoon. The joke's on you. There are better things to do. And in the meantime, we are uniting. Yes, in the meantime, we are uniting. The distance between us feels greater than the sum of the parts. My heart is beating while the ozone is depleting. It's way too hard to be hopeful for the future, for humanity. My greatest hope is that me and my friends go out peacefully from this postmodern racist sexist nightmare. This postmodern racist sexist nightmare. This postmodern racist sexist nightmare. So thank you for tuning in to WLRN's and Known Heretics live stream today. Back to you, Amy.
Thanks, Thistle. Hey, welcome, Jen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You guys look great.
I'm trying to put in, let me do the free speech how is that?
Oh, that looks great. You guys look great. Are you ready to start with your speeches?
Yeah, just give me a minute. I want to put this microphone in.
Okay. You guys look good. Beautiful day out there. Looks gorgeous.
It is very sunny.
Aw. I know. Skull, I saw that you put a comment in there. It is very cool to be able to live stream these all over the country. I'm going to put that comment up if I can find it again. Well, I'm going to put that one up. So just so you know, just so everyone knows while we're getting ready, anyone who wants to do one of these events in their town, we are happy to live stream them for you. We're happy to help you with that. So, you can, of course, always live stream it to your own channel. But if you want a bigger platform to live stream on, myself and also Women's Liberation Radio News is happen to stream these for you, because here is the thing, everyone. We are up against a $1 trillion industry who has captured all of the major media. The major media is corporately owned. And here's what we have to do. We have to make our own media. That's what we have got to do. So ultimately, doing these events, holding these women's free speech events, PS men are allowed to come and offer your free speech as well. It's of course, it's about women's rights, but it's about children too. And men are very welcome at these events, in case that wasn't clear. So men are welcome to join us and add their voices and express their own free speech. And this is the public record of our dissent. So as we do these events, this is our public record. We are creating our own media so that when men like Matt Walsh ask, hey, where were the feminists? We have records to say we were right here. We were right here doing it right here. So this is us doing it. Yeah, this is, thanks, Anya, so much for your comments. Yep, these are turfs on the turf. Yep, it's so nice to have Thistle doing her music for us. So we so appreciate her doing that. Shannon, you are right. We are going to see Katie Jean soon. She is just spot on, and she's a powerhouse when it comes to these speaking events. I'm also going to put this up. If you would like to support WLRN, you can consider a monthly donation. I will also plug myself. You are welcome to help support my Patreon. This supporting our channels really helps us be able to put on these events because we're streaming to multiple platforms. So being able to stream to this many platforms simultaneously. We are going out on stream on Women's Liberation News. We're going out on Known Heretic channels. We're out on my Facebook and WLRN's Facebook. We're on my Twitter and WLRN's Twitter. So we go out to multiple platforms to try and reach the most audience that we can with our events and with our messaging. So anyone who can support that, your donations are very welcome. Even a small donation. You can support me on my Patreon. You can support WLRN through the link above. You can also support me on PayPal, and you can also now support me by being a super follower on my Twitter. So all of these help us continue to do these events, which are very important to get our points across. All right. So Jen, are you ready? How are you guys doing?
Yes. Do you have a good view, Amy?
I do have a great view. And is your sound system turned on?
The sound system is on, right?
Hello. Welcome.
Yes,
everybody.
that's great. All right, I am going to remove myself from the screen and I'm going to put it on you. So go ahead and introduce,
And then we can start.
Good afternoon, Chicago. Welcome to Free Speech for Women, Speaker's Corner. All women are welcome to speak, and if you're a man, you can speak after the women, ladies first. We're starting our Speaker's Corner today at a little bit after 2. And the reason we're doing this is because our speech is getting silenced on social media. I've been banned. Probably everybody here has been banned. They're not letting us speak. They're not letting women say men cannot be women on social media. So we have to take it to the streets and remind everybody who's who. Everybody knows the difference between a man and a woman. Title IX has been gutted. Title IX protects women on the basis of sex. President Biden signed an EO on the 50th anniversary of Title IX and put gender identity, prioritizing gender identity before sex, thus negating the rights of women and girls. And what this means is women are no longer protected under Title IX. So now we have Roe v. Wade and Title IX, double whammy, go make me a Sammy bullshit coming from the men, right? So women, we're going to have to get strong and courageous and come out to the streets and start talking about what's going on with women's rights. Women deserve rights. Women deserve dignity and privacy. They deserve to be able to go to a public restroom without a man being in there. They deserve to go to school without being coerced into using pronouns they don't want to use and going in the locker room with the boys. Women deserve privacy and dignity, and that's what this free speech event is about. So, no more ado, I will. Who wants to come up next? I will. Woo!
All right, do you want to man the camera or
No, the camera's fine. Nobody has to man it. I'm going to get my other cameras. Adjusted here. It is not hard to know what a woman is. It is not hard to know what a woman is. So why is it becoming increasingly difficult to say, especially for those in the public eye? Bette Midler and Macy Gray were recently hounded on Twitter for daring to say that medical intervention won't make a man a woman. Those of us not in the public eye also often experience... Okay. All right, guys, we're moving to the sidewalk. It'll be just a minute.
so like right there? This from the sidewalk over is private. Okay. Sidewalk.
okay, it looks like they are being asked to move to the sidewalk.
The private property onto the sidewalk, but
That's perfect. And hey, when you move, can you put the amp a little bit closer to the phone mic?
yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Yay. Aw.
It's a learning process.
It is a learning process. You guys are doing great. Perfect. You look great.
Sorry for that interruption. This is actually a better location because the sound is bouncing off the Wrigley building where we've decided to host this event, and I think you'll get better sound. So here you go for the next speaker. It is not hard to know what a woman is. So why is it becoming increasingly difficult to say, especially for those in the public eye? Bette Midler and Macy Gray were recently hounded on Twitter for daring to say that medical intervention won't make a man a woman. Those of us not in the public eye also often experience societal pressure and sometimes even pressure from our employees to keep our mouths shut about the differences between men and women. Women are adult human females, born as girls, grown into women. Women are all individuals, no two alike. We do not fit in a box of femininity defined by what we wear, how we look, and how we act.
We do not share a single set of beliefs or a universal inner woman identity amongst us. Instead, we are unique in our interests, the way we look and act, and in the way we feel inside. Women share only one thing, and that is having been born into the same sex class, not the one belonging to the ruling class of men, but rather of the more vulnerable, long oppressed class of woman. The universal experience of womanhood is the existence within a female body, and a female body cannot be manufactured. A woman is not made, she is born. It is important that we are vocal about what makes a woman, especially as we fight against the erosion of women's rights. Today it's abortion, but what's next? When we cannot name what a woman is, women cannot organize with each other. When the meaning of woman is obfuscated, it becomes increasingly difficult to find spaces for women and girls free from men. Even spaces that used to be lesbian focused have been rebranded as queer and are often run by trans-identifying men. Several years ago, I was a closeted lesbian from a strict religious background, living with a man I had married shortly after turning 18. After years of internal struggle with my own sexuality, I reached out to peers online within queer communities, and they encouraged me to date women and strongly suggested that I might be a lesbian. But they also did something insidious. They made sure that I accepted and understood that good lesbians banded together with their transgender identifying siblings. Good lesbians knew that trans women were women. The new friends who told me that dating women would be freeing for me were the same friends who encouraged me to date and then eventually marry a man who identified as a woman. I knew that I was marrying a man, but even my newfound local LGBT friends believed that good lesbians accepted trans women were women, and so there was nowhere to go with my doubts. My so-called gay and lesbian friends within the queer community celebrated my second heterosexual marriage in one breath while encouraging me to be loud and proud about my homosexuality with the next. I had left my Christian programming behind and replaced it with queer theory. Never having been taught to think for myself, I was vulnerable to queer and gender ideologies, pushed by my newfound friends online and in person. I don't attempt to assign fault as a way to shrug personal responsibility, but the fact remains that those who would push an ideology will seek out the vulnerable. I was an adult when my peers encouraged me, after agreeing that I was a lesbian, to marry a trans-identifying man. These same peers would go on to encourage me to become trans-identifying myself, pointing to feelings I shared with many exclusively same-sex attracted women as evidence that I could be a man, or at the very least, that I was not entirely a woman. These were the people who were supposed to be supporting me as a lesbian, but it's now clear to see they don't even know what a lesbian is. If I, as an adult, could fall victim to queer and gender ideologies, how can we expect children not to? It didn't take me long to realize how wrong my self-identified queer friends were. I really am a lesbian, and no hormones or identity can make a man more of a woman. I tried to salvage a relationship with my new friends and peers, but even the suggestion that a trans woman might not be exactly the same as a real woman was treated as blasphemy. And so the same friends that had encouraged me to love women ostracized me when I said that I really did love women, but that this certainly didn't extend to men who believed they were women. This experience made two things clear to me. First, gender ideologues see no room for compromise. I tried to placate them by making a distinction. Perhaps there are female women and male women, and lesbians are only attracted to females. But even this was treated as some form of hate speech or an admission that I wanted all trans-identifying persons to die or otherwise just not exist. And second, it is clear to me that the trans and queer communities and ideologues will prey on anyone questioning their sexuality or struggling to meet societal expectations and stereotypes of their biological sex, including children who have not even reached puberty yet. As an adult, it took me years to be able to stand up to those who would bully me into validating their warped ideas of reality. But these same people want to influence children in schools, at so-called family-friendly pride events, and more. They want children to accept transgender and queer ideologies and encourage any gender-confused kids to identify as transgender and ask their parents for medical transition. They push the lie that being male or female is not a fact of biology and one's physical reality, but rather a reflection of what a person likes and how they feel, telling boys who are nurturing and kind and girls who are rough and tumble that they are now the opposite sex and should seek medical intervention. I remember how hard it was to be a kid, and it's even harder now than it was when I was young. Queer and trans groups are more than happy to offer support and friendship, even financial support, to isolated and vulnerable kids or teens at the cost of buying into their ideologies. But if these kids or teens are just boring old cis straight kids, or if they don't accept that men can be women and women can be men, they will lose these friends and this support. We cannot expect kids to grow up free from the harm of gender ideology if we don't stand up and speak against it ourselves. If we are complacent, kids and teens will continue to identify with transgender ideology and seek medicalization, irreparably harming their healthy bodies before they're even old enough to get a tattoo. We know what men and women are, and no one should be afraid to say so. If we cannot name what a woman is, how can we fight for her rights? Children know the difference between men and women without being taught, but now queer-friendly teens and adults are pushing the absurd line that men can be women and vice versa. They are telling children that the truth of the differences between men and women that is self-evident is a lie. The fact is that everyone knows what a man is and what a woman is, even those claiming not to. Straight men who claim trans women are women aren't lining up to sleep with them because they know they aren't real women. Trans women aren't affected by abortion rights because they aren't real women. They won't be affected by future attacks on contraceptive rights because they aren't women. Trans women who claim to be lesbians because they are attracted to women rarely date other trans women because even trans women know that trans women aren't real women. Trans women are men who claim to be women, but how can a man be a woman? How can a man know how a woman feels and thus claim to be one? Why are these men being allowed into women's sports, women's prisons, women's shelters, and women's restrooms? Why are these men allowed around young girls? No man should be in these spaces, and yet we let even those who are convicted sexual predators into spaces with the most vulnerable of women. We allow convicted child predators to identify out of their own sex class and claim to be women in order to enjoy transfer out of men's prisons. We allow men to change their sex identification on their driver's licenses, their birth certificates, and their passports, making it impossible to track criminal statistics. We allow men who self-identify as women for sexual gratification to not only access women's spaces, but also to have a voice in issues that are none of their business. No man should have more of a say than any woman in who is allowed in our spaces, our sports, our prisons, and our restrooms. Women say no. Don't allow men who identify as women to identify themselves as females because they have begun to. They change their legal sex markers and take female sex hormones, and they may have even removed their own male genitalia, but this does not make them female. A female human is not a male human without his sex organs, and an artificially crafted hole is not a vagina. Men can never become women because women are women in every part of our being. Our lives and our experiences cannot be divorced from our female bodies. Woman is not a concept, an identity, or an idea. She is the giver of life. Woman is self-evident and gender is an oppressive ideology. If adults can fall for those who preach conversion to gender and queer ideologies, children are even more vulnerable. If we don't stand up against the social contagion of transgender ideology and queer theory, how can we expect those who come behind us to? And if we can't say what a woman is, how will we fight for her rights? We must speak up and be prepared to say no to those who would have gender and queer ideologies redefine the reality of what it is to be a man or a woman. Women are adult human females. Women's spaces, women's sports, women's rights are not a place for men, no matter how they claim to feel or identify. Identity will never trump women's life-giving powers, and men who claim to be women were all given life by a woman. Today at our Free Speech for Women event, women who have been silenced have come together to speak out. We will not be silenced, but will band together and shout from the rooftops. Women are adult human females, the givers and creators of life. Lend us your voice and protect the sacred meaning of the word woman.
Thank you, sister. That was wonderful. And women say no, and when they do, it is a complete sentence. Saying no can be difficult. You have to repeatedly do it with some people. So just remember that when you're saying no, that you might have to say no a few times. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Adult human female. One more thing. If you're in the audience and you want to come up and speak, you are welcome to come up and speak. We would love to have women and men come up and share your thoughts.
I am here today to tell you about my family's journey through gender-critical feminism, about my personal gravitation to radical feminism. And it all started with being told to educate yourself, bigot. It started 3 years ago with me having the audacity to innocently believe that feminism is for the female sex class, that oppression and misogyny have always been sex-based. So you can imagine my confusion when I mentioned such on a Twitter thread and was gleefully told for the first time that trans women are women and I should educate myself, that I was a bigot and a TERF. I didn't even know what a TERF was back then. To be so innocent again. I had always thought I was a good ally, an active feminist. I'd happily have advocated for the advancement of trans rights, for the comfort of trans women as trans women who face specific abuses and violations because of their trans identities. But being told that that wasn't good enough, they were the exact same as women, and seeing women stripped of their own language and rights to privacy and dignity really didn't sit well with me. I was so alarmed and hurt by being called a bigot over it that I did what was suggested and I went and educated myself. And it brought me all the way to here, to today, to this moment with you. When you educate yourself, you find out about the AGPs. You find out about the males in women's prisons and rape crisis shelters, the males participating in women's sports, the males appropriating and fetishizing lesbianism, the cotton and boxer ceilings. You find out about the deplatforming of women and the lack of safeguarding with self-ID policies. You definitely aren't allowed to question how their glorification of and obsession with girl dick, a term my good ears never deserve to have heard, is logical if sex dysphoria is supposed to be about feeling like you're in the wrong body, yet they clearly are in love with their penises. And you learn about the threats of violence, rape, and death directed at women who do dare to openly question or disagree with these things. Yet we aren't supposed to talk about any of this because it takes away from the narrative that they are a vulnerable class. Educating myself also led me down the path of learning about the phenomenon of rapid onset gender dysphoria, ROGD. And that's where my story and my activism really begins. 1 year ago, my family was turned upside down when my daughter Anna, then 14 years old, got sucked into trans ideology. She was one of the many young girls who found a community online during the COVID lockdowns and was preyed upon for her vulnerabilities, depression, ADHD, insecurity about having been mocked for her small frame and small breasts compared to her peers. I had been aware of trans ideology prior to this, knowing Anna was exactly the type of girl who would be susceptible to its allure of community, friendship, and acceptance. I had read the studies by Lisa Littman about ROGD and irreversible damage by Abigail Schreier. I was subscribed and up to date on every newsletter from Feminist Current, Wolf, Women Are Human, every pro-choice, every pro-woman group out there. It still didn't soften the blow when I discovered the secret social media accounts Anna had where she claimed to be a trans boy. Upon finding this, I confronted her and explained I would not be affirming her. She was not a boy. She was caught up in a social contagion from online and in her real-life peer group, and I decided that time offline would tell her for sure. I let her know I would be removing her from all social media and real-life friend groups involved in gender ideology. I kept good on my word, too. In response, Anna ate a handful of Xanax in an attempt to commit suicide. Words cannot express the nightmare, the grief, and the pain of going through that. Fortunately, a year later, she has desisted. She is happy, healthy, accepting that she's a young woman. The most insidious part about my story is how I have been silenced when I try to speak about it. People who were close friends told me I should be reported to CPS for abusing Anna by not affirming her. Nobody wants to hear the part where charities like the Trevor Project or online trans influencers spread the rhetoric that you can have a trans kid or a dead kid, which tells these children that threatening or even committing suicide is an option when they aren't affirmed. They are contributing to the self-harm of vulnerable kids, including my own. Nobody wants to hear the part where the messages I saw on Anna's social media were from people grooming her into thinking she's trans. They especially don't want to hear how this movement is so steeped in fetishism and how the kids and the adults grooming my child online also talk to her about kinks, fetishes, and BDSM.
People refuse to talk about the prevalence of trauma or neurodivergence in these young kids claiming trans identities. Friends and family members empathize with what my daughter and our family went through, but avoid talking with me about the ideological capture that led to her harming herself. Parents like myself who try to speak up about it are branded hateful, transphobic, bigots, abusive. We're even called Nazis. These tactics are deployed to stop us from speaking out, to shame us and vilify us into silence. The truth is, we are the majority, but the current social and political climate scares others from admitting so, publicly at least. I frequently have friends in my inbox or texts saying they agree with what I'm saying, but they're afraid to say so out loud for fear of retaliation with their friendships or their employer. If I can help even one family and spare them what we went through, I will keep speaking out. The truth is not hateful, and we deserve to say it out loud. I will no longer let people dictate how I speak about my experiences with gender ideology. I am done being silenced. I implore you to speak up loudly as well. Together, our voices will make a roar that cannot be silenced. Thank you.
Thank you, adult human female. For the people that are walking by, which there are thousands of people walking by this location, if you'd like to have your free speech moment, let me know, and I will put you in between the speakers that are already here. I wanted to mention, since we're in Chicago, Chicago Public Schools has adopted the EO, because if they do not adopt the policies in the EO, they will get their funding removed. The policies in the EO are unisex bathrooms, girls plus and boys plus. So if you have a student in Chicago Public Schools, please call your principal and ask them, what are your bathroom policies? Because you'll find out that your daughter is having to go to the bathroom with boys. Now, these are middle schoolers, 8th graders, high schoolers, women and girls dealing with their period for the first time, have to go to the restroom with the boys. So I think that is important information if you have a child in Chicago Public Schools. Remember, Chicago Public Schools will not get their funding, their federal funding, if they do not comply with Biden's EO. And Biden's EO prioritized gender identity before the sex-based rights of women and girls. That's happening in Chicago Public Schools. I'd like to introduce our next adult human female. Come on up. Woo!
Hello to everybody listening today, whether it's in person or in the live stream. Thank you so much for giving us your time and attention. Thank you. My speech today is brief. I really only have one point I want to hammer on, and that is the issue of rights and freedoms. Having rights on paper is nice. It makes you think, what do I have to fight for? I've got everything I need already. I'm safe, I'm protected. It gives you a sense of security, but as many people have realized recently, especially women, that sense of security is often false. Reality is that words on paper are just words on paper, and that everything we think we have can be taken away like that, unless we are willing to fight for it. We cannot afford to be complacent. Our foremothers achieved so much for us, and the best way to honor their sacrifices is to continue their work, to study it and to put it to use and to build on it. Womankind has made great advances, but it seems every step of progress results in backlash, sometimes putting us 2 steps back or redirecting us into walking in the wrong direction. We are now tasked with defending something as simple as the word we use to describe ourselves. Saying that a woman is an adult human female is now considered hate speech, apparently. We're supposed to nod and smile when people say that trans women are women. If you voice disagreement, their argument goes, you don't have to understand, just be accepting, just be nice. Keep your head down, don't ask questions. Why are you so obsessed? Why do you care so much? Well, first of all, being forced to repeat obvious falsehoods is degrading. That alone is reason enough not to play along. There is no such thing as a trans woman, they are just men. It is humiliating to even pretend these people have a real argument. They don't. There is no reason to engage in debate with people who live in a constant state of confusion. They want you to be confused too, because when people are confused and afraid of speaking clearly and plainly, they are easy to control. And control is what it comes down to. We can react to this or that particular issue, but ultimately this is a test, a turning point in history. Will you roll over and submit to anti-female terrorism? Will you let some man spit in your face and tell you it's raining? Will you allow him to trample over your existence, to rob you of your ability to speak about women as a coherent class of people? Will you allow yourself to be put in your place? Will you comply because acquiescence feels like the easiest path? Or will you resist? The more of us who stand up and call bullshit, the clearer the path becomes. So stand up and call bullshit. I'll stand with you. Thank you.
Everybody knows. So before we bring on the next speaker, I want to, since we're in Chicago, want to talk a little bit more about the Chicago public schools and how they're grooming your children. Gender ideology is in the schools, and that your daughter or son has a teacher that is capitulating to pronouns in front of your child. Now, that's gaslighting. Your child knows who a girl and who a boy is, who a woman and who a man is. And when your teacher does that, when the adult authority in the room does that, that is grooming. That is how they are grooming your child. That's one of the ways they're grooming your child in Chicago public schools. So if you have a child in Chicago public schools, they are being indoctrinated into the gender ideology belief system, which they're saying a girl can be a boy can be a girl. We know that's not true. No human being can change sex. No human being can ever change sex, no matter how many surgeries or drugs they take, they still remain either male or female. I'd like to invite anyone walking by that would like to speak in this Free Speech for Women event. Men are welcome. And I will introduce our next adult human female. Sorry about that. I'd like to introduce you to Katie Jean. Come on up, Katie Jean.
Hello. My name is Katie Jean. I'm an adult human female. I live in the Midwest. I am a mother, and I know who women are. And I know who girls are, and I know who boys are, and I know who men are. Who would I like to talk about today? Mostly I'd like to talk about women. I'd like to tell you a story about a woman in Louisiana. This is the saddest, most tragic, most effed up story I've ever heard. I'm getting her name for you. Her name is Crystal, I believe. Hold on, I jotted it down. Krista Abelseth, who lives in Louisiana. Crystal Abelseth, when she was 16 years old, she was raped. She was raped because she didn't consent to have sexual intercourse, but also because she was 16 years old and the man was 30 years old and she was raped. And that happened 16 years ago, back in like 2005. And she became pregnant and she gave birth to a baby girl. And power to Krista for choosing to have a baby as a result of being raped and as a teen. And this teen mom worked hard and has raised her daughter. And then when her daughter became 5 or 6 years old, this rapist heard that the baby existed and went to court and sued. And yes, that's right. The Louisiana judge, his name is Judge Cash. Judge Cash said that the rapist would have joint custody with the child that was produced when he raped a 30-year-old man, raped a 16-year-old girl, and then the judge awarded custody to the 5-year-old baby girl that was born as a result of the rape. It gets worse. It gets worse. Because later, that part-time custody in which a 16-year-old woman, now she's a 21-year-old woman, and she's sharing custody with her rapist, a man she hates, a man who should never even be able to be around women, much less have joint custody of a daughter. And then disputes happened, and this man harassed her and brought her through the court system. And this is the true story of Krista Abelseth in Louisiana, if you're just joining us. And Krista was 16 years old, and she was raped, and she had a baby, and she gave birth to that baby. And then the rapist got custody. The rapist got joint custody when she was 5 years old, and then when that baby grew up to be 15 or something like that, he got full custody. So that's the current situation, is that a rapist has gotten full custody of a child that was produced by a teen mom, a 16-year-old. She was too young to consent. And not only that, but dear Krista Abelseth has to pay child support to her rapist. And that to me is criminal, but it's not even the worst part of the story, because you got to remember how the story began, and that was that a 30-year-old man decided to rape a 16-year-old girl, and men who rape 16-year-old girls, that's kind of their MO, and they continue to do that. And so, of course, our rapist, who is so bold as to go to the court system and get awarded custody of the child that was produced on account of his rape, of course, he's raping that girl too. She's been to have a rape kit done, and there's evidence that has been shown that she had been sexually penetrated when she didn't consent to as a 16-year-old girl. So 2 generations of that. So that's the story of Krista Abelseth, a woman who lost her daughter to the man who raped her. There's lots of mothers that are losing their children in court to abusive men. Right now, even though everybody knows that mothers do a majority of the parenting, when you go through the court system, men and women are treated like as equal parents, even though the man contributed a half a cell to this child and the woman contributed her whole body to the production of this child. And yet we give men like as if they're equal parents, even though they're not taking on the roles and responsibilities. So of course, this disproportionately burdens and limits women and keeps them in subordinate positions and restricts their choice and restricts their freedom, prevents them from being able to live where they would like to live, prevents them from being able to choose the school they would like to choose for their school because they have to cooperate with abusive men, sometimes with their rapist. So that's wrong. Anyway, I'm standing here speaking for the sex-based rights of women and girls. It means something to be a woman. It means that you are a female person. That means you have 2 X chromosomes. Only the people that have 2 X chromosomes are women. And if you have an XY chromosome, you're forever a man, forever male. Well, you start out as a boy and then you become a man. And it can't change. And women will not continue to be polite and be kind and be told to shut up and step aside as these men encroach in our spaces, make us feel intimidated and threatened, violate our privacy with their voyeurism and their exhibitionism, and worse, because yes, they do. All we need to do is look at Loudoun County. It's amazing to me how well this story has been suppressed. But last year in the Loudoun County School District, a 17-year-old young man was given permission to go into the girls' bathroom, and that was his favorite place to rape girls. And when the school district found out he was doing it, did he get sent to juvenile detention? No. Like the Catholic Church, he got just transferred to another school within the district where, guess what? He raped another girl. Women say no. Women say no. Women say no.
Would you like a flyer?
Thank you so much for that, Katie Jean. I want to take this time to invite anyone walking by that has something to say. It's free speech for women, but we will allow men to speak. We just request that they wait until the women are finished. If you're interested in speaking your mind is a practice. Even for the men, free speech for women and men. We live in America where there's free speech. And when you go to work and you can't even distinguish between a man and a woman because you'll get fired if you say the wrong thing, that's not free speech. That's a violation of your rights. Now, we're doing this out on the street in Chicago, across the street from the beautiful Wrigley building, because we want people to exercise their right to free speech. If you don't exercise your rights, they're like muscles. They get weak. So come on up if you have something to say. We'd love to hear from you. And I'm going to introduce our next adult human female. She's coming right up. Thanks.
Hi. I have spent.
What? Right into the microphone.
Hello. I have spent hundreds of hours on Twitter and Spaces, learning and educating about the crazy stuff going on since 2002.
Loud and directly.
Seriously? Oh.
Real loud and directly right now.
Did you? Hello. I have spent hundreds, if not a few thousand hours on Twitter for the last 9 months or so, learning all about this and trying to educate and figure out what we can do to save our society and women's rights and children's safety. And it's incredibly complex and difficult. And one of the biggest problems is that we use euphemisms, whether in the news or on Twitter, that soft pedal the real harm and danger that's being done, especially with gender surgeries. Instead of saying that women are having their genitals removed and having their upper thigh muscles or forearm ligaments and skin taken and rolled up to create a fake penis in their lower abdomen. This is actually happening all over the United States and in Scotland and Ireland and England and Europe. And nobody talks about it. And they soft pedal it by talking about bottom surgery. It's not just bottom surgery any more than you put your cat or dog to sleep. You're euthanizing your cat or dog. And men also have their genitals removed. And it's gotten so bad that now there's something called neutro, where like a Ken or Barbie doll, men and women are having all of their genitals removed until nothing remains but a small hole to urinate through in the front. None of this is helpful, and it soft pedals the damage and the incredible emotional, psychic, spiritual, and medical damage through these people's lifetimes. And in the United States, girls as young as 13 have had their breasts removed because they've been groomed to believe that they can be boys. They can't be boys. They can remove secondary sex characteristics, but that just means they're a young woman, an adolescent, without breasts. And that also has medical problems that flow from that, whether from lymph nodes that aren't connected anymore. Many of them still have phantom feelings, and they live a few more years, and suddenly they want to have children and are shattered that they can no longer breastfeed. So they call that top surgery rather than a double elective mastectomy, which is what it is. And so many of us have known women that have had cancer and had to have that surgery, and how horrific it is, and how horrible it is, and how your arms swell and all the pain you're in. And we have people as young as 13 in the United States who are having their breasts removed. The euphemisms that are used are very dangerous because it soft pedals the harm and the expense, both to society, to their families, to their significant others, maybe 10, 15 years from now. And also the medical costs. A big problem here is that pharmacological and surgeons are behind this because it brings in enormous amounts of revenue. Rolling up thigh skin or forearm skin and creating a fake penis. The surgery in the United States is $70,000. And in the first year, approximately 64 to 69% have at least 3 more procedures because they don't work. When you attach body parts where they're not supposed to be attached, they don't heal. They're viewed as wounds, and the body continually tries to close them. Then, for hormones, it's hundreds of dollars a month for the rest of their lives. And that's a problem too. They call something puberty blockers. What they don't tell you is that your skeleton doesn't finish forming for the first time until you're 12 years old. So your brain doesn't finish developing until the end of your 25th year. That includes the cerebral frontal cortex, which is what reduces recklessness and lends long-term thinking and the ability to think of ramifications of things that you're considering doing. So when we have 9 to 11-year-olds in the United States being groomed to think that they're actually the other sex and that all they need to do is take hormones and puberty blockers and have their genitals switched and all of their problems will be removed, it's just false. In fact, a very large, well-received study shows that the average trans person who's trans questioning has 4 comorbidities, and they run the gamut from anxiety, depression, borderline personality disorder, loneliness, loss of a girlfriend, having sexually been abused, trauma in their family, all sorts of comorbidities. And the psychologists that are supposed to be dealing with these kids, at least in America, on average, talk to them about their psychological problems an average of 20 minutes before giving them puberty blockers and or opposite sex hormones. It should be criminal, and it's happening right now across the United States, and most people don't know about it. And that's why we're standing here in the incredibly hot sun trying to educate people about it so they can protect themselves, their families, and most of all, their children. In America, in Chicago now, in public schools, you have drag queen story hours throughout the United States and the UK, where highly sexualized transvestites with garish makeup and hair go into as young as preschools and through grade 5 or 6 in order to gyrate and tell people, the little kids, that if they're a boy who likes girl things, maybe they're really girls. If they're a girl that likes boy things, maybe they're really a boy. This is not age appropriate. It's confusing our kids. And there's also enormous numbers of trans activists spending billions of dollars putting school books in our public schools and private schools that talk to kids about completely age inappropriate subjects. And for example, we're in Chicago, Illinois right now. The governor of our state is J. Edgar Pritzker. His cousin is a trans identifying man who's also a billionaire. And he goes by the name of Jennifer Pritzker now. And he is one of about 7 to 10 billionaires that is funding this. And it is things like Drag Queen Story Hour and dropping off boxes of books to schools throughout the United States to go into these elementary school libraries of teaching little kids about anal sex and talking to them about oral sex and things that are completely age inappropriate. And people need to understand that in public schools now in Chicago, your third grade girl could walk into her public toilet and there's a group of full grown men in there. And there's nothing we can do because it's legal now. And it's also called beyond sex ideology, beyond gender ideology. It's also called synthetic sex identities, where it appears, we're not sure, but it appears the billionaires want to move us toward transhumanism, which is completely removing the idea of sex, which matters a hell of a lot to many things, such as census information, criminal statistics, all sorts of things. And they want to move towards self-ID. So like in Scotland, as of 3 days ago, you can get on the computer and change your name from Anne to Andrew and change your sex from female to male, and that's it. It's legal. This is a big effing deal, and nobody knows about it. And it's going to change. It is changing our society forever. It's changing our lives, and more people need to care. We're a little relieved here. It's windy now and a little shady. Some of the saddest stories you read are. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. You had so much knowledge there. And she is correct. And if you have a child in Chicago public schools, they are being indoctrinated. Chicago public schools will lose its funding if they do not comply to Biden's EO. And in Biden's EO, he prioritizes gender identity, thus negating the rights of women and girls. What this means is your female child, your girl child, will have to go to the bathroom with boys. That is already happening in Chicago public schools. If you have a child in Chicago public schools, they are being indoctrinated. Now, we have a gentleman that was watching our Speaker's Corner, and he'd like to say something, so he's going to come up and say a few words. We're seeing a lot of action here. There are thousands of people at this location, so thank you so much for coming up.
Hi, how is everybody doing? Hopefully you're doing good on this beautiful sunny day today. I was just walking by and I thought this was just going to be another random, protest, and it was going to be meaningless, but I sat and listened for a few minutes as walking by, and this is a serious subject that touched my heart because it's been bothering me for quite some time. This organization of women here, they're very good people, and they're trying to help the children from today. So you need to come and speak with them because they speak from the heart. What's been going on is this new ideology that they're pushing is poisoning children's minds and confusing these little innocent children. And it's a shame because this isn't what our country's about. I mean, you can't just force, a crazy ideology on people in general. But when you start doing it to little kids and you start indoctrinating little innocent children, that's wrong. That's wrong. A child should, and a person in general, should be able to make their own decisions. They shouldn't have to be forced any kind of insane ideology. And, to me, it's crazy. I mean, if a child's born a sex, male or a female, that's the way it should be. If they want to change their sexual identity, let them grow up as from a child to an adult to make that decision. But what's going on in the world today is just completely upside down. I grew up in an old school world where the Constitution meant something, freedom meant something, and we're all free, and it's a country that was formulated in the idea of freedom for all races and nationalities. That's what America stands for, and it seems like it's just all being flushed down the toilet, and this crazy ideology that this new socialism that they're pushing on these pure innocent kids, it's just wrong. It's wrong. So they're a lot more knowledgeable on the subject than I am, and I employ people to come and talk to them about it because they really want to save children. They really do. It's important because the children are going to be, our new generation, and it seems like everything that I was raised that was wrong, it's becoming right. So, please come and talk to these women. They're very good people. They're very intelligent about the subject, much more than myself. Like I said, I was just walking by and I heard what they were talking about, and it's been something that's been on my mind for a long, long time. I mean, how do you push, a child to change their sexual identity? How do you do that? How do you poison a little kid's mind like that? It's just it's beyond heartbreaking. So anyway, talk to these women. They're very intelligent on the subject, a lot better than I am. So thank you very much for letting me speak my mind. I appreciate it. Thank you. You're doing good work. Keep doing more work. People need to know. People need to know the truth. So give them a big round of applause. Give yourselves a big round of applause for trying to help people. You're taking your Sunday out on a beautiful day to help people, and that's what counts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, we are trying to help. We're trying to help the children. And I know I keep repeating this, but we are in Chicago, and I think it's very important that anyone with children that goes to Chicago public schools pays attention when I tell them gender ideology is in the schools. If the schools don't comply to the policy, Biden's EO, which prioritized gender before the sex-based rights of women and girls, it prioritized gender identity before the sex-based rights of women and girls, thus negating our rights. That's why Title IX has been gutted. Title IX does not protect women anymore. Title IX was gutted on its 50th anniversary. Thank you, Biden, for that little number. And with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it feels like there's a lot of attacks coming from every direction. But I want to focus on Chicago public schools and how they are treating children. Children that attend school in one of Chicago public schools, which I think they have like 356,000 children attend Chicago public schools. They are violating your children's rights. They are keeping things from you. If your child identifies as trans and tells a counselor at school, they will keep that from the parents. And they have something called transition closets. Well, they'll allow the child to dress up as the other sex while they're at school and then change before they go home. You don't even know what's happening with your child. You have no idea what they are doing to your child in school. So if you have a child in Chicago public schools, the first thing that you might want to do is call your principal and ask them a simple question like, do the girls have to go to the bathroom with the boys? And you're going to find out that yes, There's girls plus bathrooms and there's boys plus bathrooms, and anybody can go in any bathroom. So now a little 12-year-old girl that's just going through her period, just getting her period, has to go to the bathroom, or a boy can come in, and everybody has phones. So they, every boy has a phone and they can film them in there. There's been rapes in Loudoun County. There's been rapes all over the country because of this policy. So if you have a child in Chicago public schools, call your principal, set a meeting. When you get the information I'm giving you confirmed by your principal, set up a school board meeting. Get other parents together to help you and root this out of your school. This is up to you. Nobody else is going to do this for you. Nobody else. And the reason you should be doing this is because when you confuse a child, possibly even in kindergarten, it starts in kindergarten, they read them gender affirming books for the wrong sex. When you confuse a child like that, they don't just cut their hair. If they just cut their hair, we wouldn't be here on a Sunday afternoon. They want gender affirming drugs and surgeries. Now, the gender affirming drug for girls, the cross-sex hormone for girls, would be testosterone. And after some girls, in fact, a lot of them, after 2 weeks of taking testosterone, their voice changes and they never get their voice back. So, put your voice on voicemail, because that's going to be the last time you hear your daughter's voice. It'll be a different voice after that. And if she changes her mind, she can't get that back. That's like minor compared to what other kids are doing. They're removing their breasts. They're getting hysterectomy. They're getting orchiectomies. They're asking for phalloplasties. Phalloplasties, you have to remove part of the arm. So not only are you mutilating them, their sexual future, but you're damaging their arm. You're making them, handicapped in one arm. And then with these phalloplasties, I don't know if you're an animal rights person, but they have been testing these surgeries on dogs. So dogs are now victims to gender ideology too. The list keeps growing. Women, children, dogs, cats, men are afraid to even get up here and speak. Most men are the main breadwinners in their families, and they can't afford to lose their job. So that's why women have been speaking. I know men want to speak. Admit to yourself that you're afraid to speak. It's not that you don't want to speak. It's because you're afraid. Why are you afraid? We all should be able to have free speech in this country. Why are you afraid to speak? Because what happens? They go after your job. They, even this event, they threaten to come and harass women for this event. So this is real. We're losing our free speech in America. Both men and women are. And so I would like to invite anyone that would like to come up before we close. This is a free speech event in Chicago. Anyone want to come up and speak before we close? Okay. All right. Well, there were thousands of people here walking by. I think we got our message out today. Thank you, Amy. And once again, I'm Jennifer Thomas. I co-founded Rev Femme Rebellion, and I co-founded Rev Fox. I'm going to let she wants to say one more thing. So I'm going to let someone come in and say one more thing.
Many parents whose kids are trans questioning have been emotionally blackmailed by the school psychologist and the physicians that their children see, and they're told, you don't really have a choice but to accept this, because if you don't accept that your daughter is trans, wouldn't you rather have a trans son than a dead daughter? And those statistics are false. Actually, it's incredibly important that in the past several months, it's been shown that if a trans questioning child is not allowed to continue in any manner toward trans questioning, hormones, surgery, or any sort of affirmation only care, up to 85% of those children, by the time they're 18, have completely given up on the idea naturally because it doesn't make sense. And so actually allowing children to even think that this is a actual possibility for them to live their lives this way and to start at age 13 or something and pursuing it, much less stopping puberty, which stops your brain development and it stops your bone development. And there's children throughout the world now who've been on puberty blockers and hormones, opposite sex hormones, for as little as 2 or 3 years. They can barely stand up because their bones didn't form correctly. These are huge medical and socio problems. Thank you. And actually, the most recent Ohio House 6 days of hearings, they brought forth, it was a month ago, the fact that children and adolescents who actually receive trans affirming care are 19 times more likely to finish suicide. That is a huge, huge difference, because when they're blackmailing parents that your kid is going to have suicidal ideation if you don't let him pursue transition, that's thinking about it, not completing it. And the actual results are in, that's completely false. And those who do receive trans affirming care are 19 times more likely to finish killing themselves. This is a national and international problem. Please don't ignore it. Please educate yourself and your family and your friends and your neighbors and your school. Please challenge. Go to your children's libraries and see what books are in there. If they're age inappropriate, sexualizing and grooming your children, fight. Get on your educational boards. Do something. This has been going on for 20 years. And just now are we starting to reach a critical mass where people are angry and scared. Please, when this is over, don't forget about it. Keep it on your desk. Talk to your friends. Follow up. Please, we need your help. We need your support. Now more than ever.
Thank you so much. I think we have one more speaker. It's always at the end when people are like, wait, you don't? Yeah. We're going to have one more speaker come up, and then we'll ask, again, if anyone wants to speak. And here you go.
Sorry, it's me again. I did want to elaborate on what my former speaker was just saying. I just wanted to elaborate on what the previous speaker was saying about children who are not socially affirmed. They do tend to desist almost always, and children who are socially affirmed will go on to medicalization, which again is a lifetime commitment. I'm the one who spoke earlier about having the daughter who was involved in this trans ideology for a while, and I was the one who refused to affirm her, and she did attempt suicide. I am one of the lucky ones that her attempt was not completed, but even still, even after the emotional manipulation that these influencers and charities like the Trevor Project are telling us about having the trans kid or the dead kid, even after that emotional manipulation, I will tell you, you can say no to your child. You do not have to affirm them. You have to be their parent. You have to take them off of social media. You have to remove them from anyone who is involved in it. And I will admit, it feels very much like deprogramming from a cult, because it is a cult. They have the mantras, they have the oppressive rules. It is very much a cult. But you don't have to affirm your child. And having been there, my child even attempted suicide over it. I would still not affirm her every single time. I would seek for her to get help for the proper issue. And you can do the same thing. Do not let our children or internet bullies tell us that we must affirm. You are the parents, and this is your right. Thank you.
Thank you. Just reminding everybody, children cannot consent. So you are the parent. And if you are allowing your child to transition, you are harming your child. Your child has the right to grow up and make healthy decisions. Well, we had a wonderful day here in Chicago. Free speech for women. We also invite men to speak, and we did get a man speaking today. I wish everyone could see how many people are actually here. There are thousands of people at our free speech event for women. I would like to thank everybody that came, and thank you, Amy, for supplying us with a StreamYard. We're going to close Chicago Speakers Corner. I'm Jennifer Thomas. You can find me on RebFem Street Beat on Twitter. That's RebFemStBeat. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jennifer, so much. Thank you, Thistle, for being here. We so appreciate it. All right, we're gonna close out, but love to you all. Thank you, everyone, for being with us.
Go Chicago to end with the sirens.
Yeah.
Thanks again, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, great.